A view into a dark country sky can be a bit overwhelming. Thousands of tiny dots of light wheeling overhead, free from the tyranny of urban illumination. Finding your way around the night sky can be a bit like navigating a new town. You could use a smartphone, and yes, there's an app for that. But looking down at a phone doesn't seem right with the wonders of the universe above your head. You could do things the really old-fashioned way and just look up. In the olden days, before smartphones, people used landmarks to find their way around down here on Earth. You can use a similar technique to negotiate the night sky. Bright stars, or groups of stars, can be used to locate others, sort of like sky marks. This method of stellar trekking is known as star hopping. Before we go skipping among the stars, it might be helpful to know your directions. And there's a star for that. One star in the sky that doesn't appear to move is very helpful for finding your way around. To identify that star, we use one of the best sky marks in the heavens. Look toward this part of the sky at a group of 7 fairly bright stars that have the appearance of a long-handled scoop or saucepan, which is commonly known as the Big Dipper. Many people believe the Big Dipper is a constellation. Well, it's not. It's actually an asterism, a collection of stars that can be part of a larger group of stars. The Big Dipper forms the body and the unusually long tail of Ursa Major, the large bear. If you connect the 2 stars in the end of the bowl of the Big Dipper and stretch that line into space, they point you to this dim star. This is Polaris, or the North Star. It's positioned almost directly above the Earth's North Pole. From this location, it appears that Polaris doesn't seem to move. All the other stars look as if they are circling around the North Star. Think of it this way. Say you place a number of paper stars on the ceiling. You sit in an office chair and begin to spin. If you look at the star directly over your head, it looks as if that star is standing still, while the rest of the stars wheel around the one overhead. So, if you gaze in the direction of the conveniently placed Polaris, you're looking north. If you're facing north, then south must be behind you. That would make east on your right and west to the left. Just by observing that one star, you can find your way around the sky, as well on Earth. Polaris happens to be the end star in the asterism of the Little Dipper. This is one of the few asterisms that also make up its constellation. In this case, Ursa Minor, the small bear. Ursa Minor and the groups of stars that pinwheel around it are known as Circumpolar Constellations. These celestial clusters are visible throughout the night sky, as well as the year for those living in the northern hemisphere. The other constellations come and go during the night and the seasons. The stars that we're observing are those that populate the sky at the height of spring. And we're about to see why the Big Dipper makes such a good sky mark. If you follow the curve of the Dipper's handle to the east, you will find a bright orange star named Arcturus. So we have arced to Arcturus. This is the 4th brightest star in the night sky. And it's the most brilliant star in the constellation of Boötes the herdsman. The shape of constellations are pure imagination, and you can make up any picture you like. For instance, some people think this group of stars looks a little more like an ice cream cone rather than a guy driving a bunch of oxen. If we continue this arc, like we're spiking a football, we come to the bright blue star Spica. Now we've spiked to Spica. This is the brightest star in Virgo, the maiden. To the Greek and Romans, this group of stars was associated with agriculture, and Spica was seen as a bunch of wheat in her hand. Virgo takes up a lot of space. This is the 2nd largest constellation in the night sky. If we hop back to the Big Dipper, we can use it to find yet another group of stars. Connect the two stars of the bowl closest to the handle and extend that line in the opposite direction of Ursa Minor until we come to the blue-white star Regulus. This star is at the bottom of a grouping that looks like a backward question mark or a farmer's sickle. These stars form the head and mane of Leo, the lion. This little jump is sort of like we've leapt to Leo. According to the Greeks, this was the lion killed by Hercules during the first of his 12 labors. As the Earth spins and as it treks around the sun, the night side surrenders to separate sectors of space. Each season has its own cast of constellations, and the stars of spring sink below the horizon, the sultry stars of summer saunter into the sky. 3 dazzling stars dominate the skies of summer. Connected together, they form the asterism of the summer triangle. These are the 3 brightest stars in 3 different constellations. The most vivid of this twinkling trio is the blue-tinted white star Vega. Actually, this is the 5th brightest star in the night sky and makes up part of Lyra, the harp. This is a fairly small constellation. It has a tiny triangle connected to an odd-looking parallelogram. To the Greeks, this was a small, handheld harp that they used to play to rock their world. The next stop along the summer triangle takes us to the blue-white star Deneb. This star is positioned at the tail of Cygnus the Swan. As far as constellations go, this group of stars actually resembles what it's named after. To folks back in the day, this celestial collection represented a graceful, long-necked swan gliding through the heavens. Our last port of call along this trio of stars lands us at Altair. This white star is the brightest star of Aquila the Eagle. When we connect the dots of this constellation, it's not terribly reminiscent of a great bird of prey. But to the people populating the eastern Mediterranean thousands of years ago, this group of stars reminded them of the eagle that Zeus would send down to Earth to scoop up a young child to be cupbearer of the gods. It looks as if both Cygnus and Aquila are soaring along a cloud or perhaps a band of smoke. Well, this isn't a cloud and it's not smoke. This is part of our home galaxy, the Milky Way. What we're looking at are millions upon millions of stars that are so far away and packed so closely together, we don't see the individual stars, just their collective glow interspersed with vast veils of dark dust and gas. If we follow the Milky Way to the south of the Summer Triangle, we'll come across a small group of stars that have the appearance of a teapot. It looks as if the Milky Way is steam streaming from the spout. This isn't the teapot constellation, but it's part of a larger ensemble called Sagittarius the Archer. The stars making up this celestial shooter are similar in brightness, so no one star stands out. The Greeks envisioned a half-human, half-horse centaur sporting a bow and arrow. It's a good thing that Sagittarius is so well armed, because he's facing a rather menacing neighbor. The astral archer appears to be taking aim and ready to loose his arrow at the red star Antares. This scarlet stellar shiner is the heart of Scorpius the Scorpion. The most distinctive part of this constellation is the curve of stars that look like a fishhook. This bunch of stars makes up the scorpion's tail. In Greek mythology, Scorpius had a bit of a dust-up with another constellation, Orion the Hunter. It was said to keep the racket down, the gods sent them to opposite sides of the sky. Similar to the travels around a new town where familiar landmarks slip below the horizon and new ones take their place, the sky presents new sky marks. As the summer triangle sinks towards the west, a different asterism arrives for autumn. The cool, crisp evenings of mid-fall shape up around a great square high in the sky. The stars of this asterism aren't particularly flashy, but they're bright enough to help this distinctive shape to stand out. These stars, along with others, make up a high-flying winged horse named Pegasus. The Great Square makes the body. Stars connected to the southwest corner of the square form the horse's neck and head, and stars attached to the northwest corner make up the legs. For some reason, the Greeks imagined only the front half of Pegasus, and he seems to be in the middle of a barrel roll. Pegasus actually shares a star with another constellation. The northeast star of the Great Square is the head of Andromeda. She has the appearance of a young lady trying to hitch a ride, which would make a much better story than the one the Greeks came up with. According to myth, Andromeda was chained to a rock for a sacrifice because of the sins of her mother, and dear old mom isn't far away. Just north of poor, suffering Andromeda is a distinctive group of stars with the characteristics of a lazy W. This is Queen Cassiopeia. The word of the streets of ancient Athens was that she had boasted that she and her daughter were more beautiful than the servants of the god of the sea, Poseidon. This didn't set well with the deity of the deep, so he sent a sea monster to destroy the kingdom. All of this was quite alarming to Andromeda's dad. Behind Cassiopeia is a collection of stars that kind of look like a stick figure house, which represents Cepheus the king. To protect his kingdom, Cepheus was told to sacrifice his daughter. So Andromeda was chained to a rock by the sea to await her fate. If only someone could come to her rescue. Well, there's a hero for that. At the feet of Andromeda lies the constellation of Perseus. According to the story, our hero arrived just in the nick of time to save the damsel in distress. The two were married and lived happily ever after, or at least as happily as Greek mythology allows. Time marches on, as well as the seasons. The last leaves of autumn have fallen to the ground, and the long cold nights of winter have set in. Even though you may have to brave the chilly nights, you'll be rewarded with a cornucopia of colorful constellations. The Big Dipper yet again shows why it's such a great sky mark. If we connect the stars on top of the bowl, where a lid might go, and draw that line out, we come to the bright yellow star Capella. So we've capped things off with Capella. This is the brightest star in Auriga, the charioteer. In Greek mythology, Auriga was placed in the sky as a reward for his invention of the four-horse chariot. Back in the day, charioteers were responsible for the livestock, so Auriga is usually pictured holding a baby goat, represented by this constellation's flashiest star. Capella is part of a large asterism called the Winter Hexagon, or the Winter Circle, or the Winter Oval, depending on how you look at it. No matter how things shape up, this part of the sky is populated with quite a few bright stars, each belonging to their own constellations. If we travel counterclockwise around the circle from Capella, we come across a pair of fairly bright stars, Castor and Pollux. Castor casts a bluish-white tint, while Pollux glows with a yellow-orange radiance. These two brilliant beacons beg our attention as the heads of Gemini the Twins. This group of stars takes on the shape of an elongated upside-down letter U. As the story goes, when Castor died, because he was a mere mortal, Pollux pleaded with his father Zeus to grant Castor immortality. The wish was granted, and the two were united in the heavens. Our next stop brings us to Procyon, the brightest star in Canis Minor. This constellation is fairly simple. It's pretty much Procyon, and the dimmer star next to it. This is supposed to be a small dog in the sky. It's a bit of a stretch of imagination to see a celestial chihuahua just by putting two stars together. Instead of a little dog, it might make more sense to imagine a hot dog. As we wheel around the winter circle, we come across the brightest star in the entire night sky, Sirius. This spectacular stellar sapphire is also known as the Dog Star because of its prominence in the constellation of Canis Major, the large dog. Sirius is often depicted as the dog's nose, but sometimes it's positioned as the heart. Both Canis Major and Canis Minor have been envisioned as the faithful companions of a greater hunter not too far away. The next standout star is Rigel. Shining with a blue-white light, Rigel represents the left foot of Orion, the hunter. Orion is one of the few constellations that actually looks like what it's named after. It's not difficult to imagine a mighty hunter ready to do battle. You might recall that Orion had a knockdown, drag-out fight with Scorpius. Well, this is the opposite side of the sky where Orion was sent. It still looks like he's ready to scrap with yet another constellation nearby. Our last port of call along the winter circle has us weighing anchor at Aldebaran. Blazing with an orange hue, this star makes up one of the eyes of Taurus, the bull. Featuring a distinctive V shape of stars that make up the bull's face. Two long horns extend up toward Vega and Gemini. In Greek mythology, the bull was one of the forms Zeus would take when he would walk on the wild side down on Earth. These are only a few of the star patterns that inhabit the night sky. There are 88 constellations roaming the heavens, but you can see only a fraction at any one time. Some star groups will be lost in the glare of the sun, and others can't ever be seen unless you like to travel. Folks living in the southern hemisphere see a different set of constellations. At first, navigating the night sky can be a bit intimidating, but like finding your way around a new town with a little time, you'll be able to hop around the sky like it's your hometown. Once you've found your way around the main streets, you can explore the side streets and back alleys of the celestial city of the constellations. Like the funky shops and hole-in-the-wall restaurants you can find in town off the beaten paths, the sky offers awesome sights to see. When you extend your vision with a pair of binoculars or a telescope, the trails blazed by the constellations can show you the wonders of the universe.